Hi everyone, I'm Alex Mayer, and today I want to give you 3 advanced tips that would help you increase engagement or even conversion on pretty much any page on any product, in my experience, in all verticals and industries, and even on your social media pages. Before I jump in, let me tell you how I came up with these 3 advanced tips. I was doing back of the envelope calculation the other day. I've spent about $64 million launching about 30 products over the past 10 years. And I've learned a lot, obviously, from all those experiments. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've also learned a lot of useful things. And some of those principles, some of the things that I learned are very industry-specific or product-specific. But then I've observed some universal principles that are true pretty much in my experience in all products and all pages. I picked the top 3, and I want to share those 3 with you. And I'm just going to jump right into it. The first tip, and this is interesting, it sounds a little bit trivial, but in my opinion, like 80% of people don't do this properly. And that is basically the following principle. When a visitor comes to a page or sees a product for the first time, whether it is your own pages or it is something that you're preparing for the clients, the first time that somebody sees a page or a product, they need to understand why they should bother to read that page or to do anything with that page. And that's something that, I've seen a lot of people don't get it right. And, so you have to articulate that why should the user bother understanding what's going on that page, in my opinion, right at the top of the page. And if you think about it, this is like, think about this monitor right here as a web page, or it could be inside an app, or it could be a social media page. You basically, right at the top, maybe right below the logo, and I even recommend like centered on the page. You want to articulate why the user, not the creator of the page, but why should the user bother understanding what's going on that page. And I call that, different people have different names for it. Let's call it a headline for now. And the purpose is very simple, to tell the user why they're looking at that page. And it's basically the main benefit of the page to the end user. And this is, again, another part where people, if you notice, I've underlined benefit and I've underlined to the end user because most people, when they're writing their headline, it is about them. It's really not about the creator of the page, or it's not even about the product. It's about the benefit to the visitor. And that's a very important distinction in my experience. So you want to articulate, if I've created this page for you, I want to, right at the top, I want to briefly articulate why this page would benefit you as the visitor of this page. And I also said, I basically call it visitor-centric language, meaning it's not about the product, it's not about the creator of the product, it's not about the marketer, it's not about the ego of the creator of the product, it's about the end user and the benefit to the end user. It's an important distinction, and it's important to think about your copy that way. I always put it at the top because, maybe right below the navigation bar and right below the logo, but it's the first thing that the user should see. And, if this is the page, this is the area. So maybe there's a nav bar here or a logo here, but this is the area. One other thing that I always tell people is that try, when you're thinking about the benefit to the user, try to be as specific and as crystal clear as possible. So 2 dimensions, and again, in my experience, have been 2 types of benefits that have been very effective. And there are many. I'm just going to name these 2 because they have been the most beneficial in my experience, are cheaper and faster. And the more specific you can be with these, the better. And I'm going to explain in a second. Another rule that I've observed, and there is some data about this, not specifically about headlines, but a rule that I always use is that when I'm writing my headline, I go for 5 to 12 keywords, main words. and I'm going to explain that in a second. I don't know why that is the right amount. It feels like under 5 words, you don't have enough room to have a specific, to explain, articulate the specific benefit. And above 12, it's just too much. So it is basically a lot of cognitive work for the visitor to understand the benefit. You want to make it simple, but not too simple, which is why my rule is about 5 to 12 words. And I also add 1 or 2 specific numbers if applicable. Now, let me show you something. Let me go back to the title of this presentation. So look at the title of this presentation. This is actually an example. I use my own rules for my PowerPoint presentations, for example. So the title, let's count it. And I capitalize the words that matter, like advanced tips, and the ones that don't matter, like to or on, I don't capitalize them. So let's count it. 3 is a 1 number. I told you you can use 1 or 2 specific numbers. So 3 is the number, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 words. So this title has 7 words. It is specifically explains how this is going to help you. So I articulated that, you're going to get 3 tips that would increase engagement on any page. So you can use this on your own product or your client's products. So I've done that. At the number of words 7, I've used 1 specific number. And now look at this word, instantly. So remember I told you the 2 things that matter a lot are time and cost. So by saying it is going to instantly increase your engagement, I actually told you that this is a shortcut. So I told you that you would benefit by doing this. You're going to save a lot of time. So I'm implying speed or time in this title. So the words like instantly, quickly, or if you want to put specific numbers like length of time, you can use that as well. If your title is more cost-centric, this is more time-centric. If it was more cost-centric, then you would say things like, cheaper or 50% less or things like that. But this is an example actually of a good headline that is not too short, not too long. It articulates the specific benefit, and it actually sets the table for you guys to know what to expect, why you should bother listening to me. You're expecting 3 tips from me. I've given you already 1 of them. Okay? So let's jump to tip number 2. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term A/B testing or split testing, but I'm going to explain. If you're not familiar, I'm going to define it in a second, and then I'm going to give you a tip that I've seen. Again, this is one of the mistakes. I've seen numerous companies make these mistakes. So I'm hoping that I can prevent some of you guys from making the same mistakes. So a lot of times when you are faced with a product decision or a landing page decision or design decision, or even in your social media pages, you're trying to decide what language to use. A lot of times one good way to do it is to create 2 or 3 different variations and then compare them side by side to see how customers would react to them and use that data to make a decision. Instead of trying to sit in the room and make a decision about what's the best, most effective language, you can test it. Right? So that is called A/B testing or split testing. And if you want to learn more, you can obviously Google the term A/B testing or split testing to get more information. But for those of you who already, and you can obviously pause this video, go Google it to learn more. But for those of you who have either paused to go and Google the term, or you already are familiar with the term split testing, here's a pitfall of people who put too much emphasis on A/B testing. I used to be one of those myself. So I used to treat A/B testing or split testing as a religion almost. So I was like, we always have to test everything, blah, blah, blah. But here's a problem. A/B testing is a tool, but it's not a religion. I mean, it is one of the many tools you can use. And the main problem that I've seen with A/B testing is that there are a lot of factors that can impact a test like that. And to set up a proper test and knowing that your test has reached a statistical significance, meaning there have been enough people that have gone through both A and B for the result to be meaningful. It's actually very hard. And the results are sometimes misleading. It's just random coincidence that one test has performed better than control. And there are too many variables, and also a lot of tools don't shuffle properly. And that's a more advanced topic to talk about. But basically, I can tell you in my experience, a lot of A/B test or split testing tools that are out there are good, but they have their own flaws. So, and either because they don't quite randomly send the users, they use a time period where they send users for a time period to A and then for a time period to B, and maybe then you have an advertising campaign that is running, and the nature of the traffic shifts during those tests. So I guess my point is that regardless of how careful you are or how experienced you are with A/B testing, treat A/B testing as a tool, but not as, as one tool in your arsenal, but not like basically the end result. And one thing that I tell people is that, the only thing worse than not having any information is having the wrong information. And that is, I think, something that I've seen a lot of people to fall for. So basically, they run a test. There are a lot of variables. The test is never conclusive. And, but it shows that, A performs better than B. And then they immediately take that as a truth. And even though that particular observation is not true, they believe it. And the worst thing that you can do is believe in something that is not true. So you better not know than believe in something that is not true, because then you are like, okay, so I've observed this, and this is a fact, and it's going to inform all my future decisions. While in fact, what you observed was just a fluke, a statistical fluke, or some result of the setup of your experiments. And these tests are so complicated a lot of times, and there are so many factors that you don't see, that basically all of these I get, unless I have multiple data points and many experiments pointing to the same thing, I take those as a data point, but not as the absolute truth. One trick that I've learned, and this is basically my own invention of how to address some of this, because again, I spent a lot of time on tip number 2, because I know a lot of you guys are analytical and want to test a lot of things and make decisions. And in my own companies, I've observed the same thing. So I had product managers or, marketing people or social media people that were very analytical, and they wanted to apply math to make decisions, basically. And they ran a lot of A/B testing, but then some of the outcome of A/B testing or split testing was just a statistical fluke, or, the result of a particular circumstances of the test. But they didn't realize that, and they started running with that wrong information. So what I did was a simple trick. Basically, every time I told them, okay, so you have page A or page B. It could be an Instagram page. It could be, a landing page. It could be, anywhere in your funnel. It could be anywhere in the app. So anywhere in the product, you have page A and page B, and you're trying to compare them side by side, right? I came up with a simple trick that actually solved a lot of the, these can I trust the data problems. And what I said is, okay, instead of creating 2 variations, one for test A, one for test B, create 4 variations. 2 for test A, the same design, but 2 different variations. So instead of 2 buckets, you have 4 buckets. 2 of them are A, and 2 of them are B. Okay? Does that make sense? So I have, instead of having A and B, I have A, bucket 1, A, another bucket that is also A, the exact same thing, a third bucket that is B, and a fourth bucket that is also B. So A, B, B. And then I would run traffic to it or conduct experiment, and then you would see that actually most of the time, you have bucket 1 and bucket 2 that are both the same thing. They're both A. The results are different. So And the same with B. So B1 and B2 are different. What does that mean? That means that they're the same thing, but they are showing different results. That means that what you're observing is not because, you know, A in bucket 1 is better than A in bucket 2. They're the same thing. The conversion, let's say, if that's what you're measuring, it just means that it's a statistical fluke, or it's a result of set up the experiment. So what I would do in those scenarios is that I wait until A becomes equal to A, bucket 1A becomes equal to bucket 2A, and bucket 3B equals to bucket 4B. And then I'm like, okay, now I can trust these experiments because the same design resulted in the same conversion rate, for example. Then you can compare A and B. And that would actually eliminate a lot of misinformation that split testing can cause. And you know, I know that a lot of people these days use split testing a lot to make decisions, but in my experience, split testing not done right, or believing in, you know, outcomes of split testing that are actually not right and are just a fluke, is worse than, you know, not knowing even. So I guess I made my point clear. And yeah, and that's a simple trick. You can use it. Continue running the experiment until bucket 1A becomes equal to bucket 2A, and then bucket 1B becomes equal to bucket 2B, and then you can trust it to some extent. But before that, using this simple trick eliminates a lot of basically misinformation. Okay. So the third tip: don't force visitors to make decisions. And this is, you know, hopefully, but it's, you know, I know that you guys have gone through a lot of videos, and hopefully you guys have some training or have been exposed to a lot of, you know, online properties, whether they're social media pages or, you know, websites or apps. They're all the same concept. And you're familiar with basic layouts of these products. And this is another area where it's an advanced tip. And I think for those of you who are familiar with these products and different design layouts, this will be very helpful. So one thing that I've learned over time is you don't want to force your visitors to make decisions unless it's absolutely necessary. And let me explain why. Making decisions when somebody visits your page, or, you know, they come to your product, creates decision fatigue. It's work for the visitor. Why would you want your visitor to do work unless it's absolutely necessary? And this is actually a very common mistake. You go, you know, most websites, you see this mistake all the time, and I'll explain why this is a common mistake. But it is a mistake. Basically, avoid any fork in your design, meaning user is consuming the information on your page or app or whatever property, and they get to a point where they have to, like, you know, they have one button asking them to take them to one page. There's another button that takes them to the other page, and they have to, like, pick and choose. And, you know, I avoid those as much as I can. There are times when users have to make decisions, so those, I mean, that's different. My point is, don't have those unless you absolutely have to. Like, if you have, you know, you're offering 2 different products on the page and, you know, different price points, that's fine. That's a decision that the user has to make. But anything short of that is just decision fatigue. It creates decision fatigue, and you want to avoid it at all costs. And that comes a lot to, you know, funnel design, page layout design, what to say in your funnels, on your buttons, and how many buttons on the page that do different actions. I normally go with a tunnel, what I call a tunnel design, which is, you know, you land on a page, and then it asks you, the whole purpose of the page is for you to take one action, and, you know, convinces you to take that one action, not 2, 1. And then it takes you to another page, and that page's the purpose is to make you one action again. So it's a tunnel design. You don't make people to go like it's not a maze. It's not like, oh, if I do this, I go to that page, and then I have that happens. It's like, you know, very straightforward. And the reason is, why create extra work for your visitor? And something that people don't realize is that, a lot of you guys are familiar with the concept of a bounce. So a bounce is a user that lands on, a page and doesn't go forward, or doesn't give you their information, or they don't purchase. Or somebody that lands on a social media account and doesn't, follow that account. So that's a bounce. Maybe you even paid for that click or that visit, and you lost the opportunity to actually take the person to the next level. So that's called a bounce. And in general, you want to obviously minimize bounce on any product. So one thing I've realized is that people assume that when people land on a page and they bounce, it's because they don't like that product or the idea. Not true. Okay? So yes, there will be people who bounce, who land on a page, look at a product, look at an account, a social media account, and they don't go forward because they don't like the product. But in my opinion and my experience, the majority of your bounce is not because they don't like it. It's because it is too much work to understand what's going on that page, and they just procrastinate. They say, oh, I'll check it out some other day. And that's a user that goes away, and the probability of you getting them back again is low. So that's another reason to reduce, work on behalf of the user. When they, you want to make things simple, not a lot of decisions, easy and straightforward. And you want to remove procrastination or mental burden or what I call cognitive burden of the page. So the user lands in, and you immediately tell them why they're there, why they should bother to read the page, and why they should take the action that you want them to take. And that reduces at least the procrastination. Now, if they don't like the product, whole different story. There will be always people that don't like, are not convinced by the product and they bounce, that's fine. But then you want to reduce procrastination. Bounce due to people saying, okay, I don't have time right now. I'm on my phone and I'm, on the train, and I have just a few minutes. This is too much work. Like, I don't have time to figure it out. And that is just simple procrastination that you can minimize. Now, some of you guys might be familiar with page layout design. Some of you guys might be designers. And I've worked with a lot of designers. I've had a lot of designers work for me. And I know, and this is the third bullet, it's interesting because this is actually one of the points that I always, argue with designers. Designers want to make pages pretty, and they go with layouts that make pages pretty. And one of the things that designers tend to do, especially for desktop applications, is they go with 2-column or 3-column designs. So they have like something at the right, and then some testimonial on the left. And in my opinion, that goes to my first point. It creates, so you're looking at the page, and then you don't know if you should read the left-hand side of the page or the right-hand side of the page. So it's not very obvious. So it increases cognitive burden. So you have to decide, okay, do I look at this or look at that? And that by itself, to me, is like reduces conversion. That's why I don't like 2-column layouts. Even if they use 2-column layouts, I would put a simple image on the other column. Never text like side by side. Because then the user has to decide, do I read the left column first or the right column first? And those look pretty on computers. On mobile, it doesn't even work. So on mobile, everything is like, has to be linear. But on desktop, sometimes designers go with 2-column designs. And in my experience, that goes exactly to my first point, which is like, okay, why am I just so that my page looks pretty, now I'm having the customer or visitor decide whether to look at column A or column B, and that creates decision fatigue. So I avoid these. And bottom line, make it easy. I underlined easy and available. So make it easy for the customer, make it available, no scanning, no hunting for information, just laid out clearly. Even if it's not the prettiest design, you want to go with ease of use over how pretty the page is in general, in my opinion. Okay? So those were the 3 tips. Now, bonus tip. My bonus tip is that always have a bonus tip. So regardless of, it's a sales page or what have you, whatever you promise to the customer or visitor, have something on top at the end, okay? And a bonus tip doesn't have to be complicated. Normally bonus tips is easier. If you look at this page, my bonus tip is easier than the other pages. It's like, super straightforward. And put it right above the call to action, okay? So now, if you think of this page as one of the pages that you were designing, what is my call to action? I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay, so I put a call to action at the bottom, follow me on Snapchat, right? And then I put a bonus tip right at the top. So that is how you actually increase conversion. So right up front at the presentation, let's look at my presentation as an example of the type of product that actually I think converts well. Right at the beginning, I gave you a headline in less than 12 words, more than 5 words. I think we counted it. It was 7 words. In 7 words and a number, I explained, articulated the benefit of the product. So this hooked you. It told you why you should be listening to me. Then I delivered the 3 points that I promised, okay? Each one of them with a headline at the top. So these are the 3 points. And then at the end, I gave you a bonus, right? A very easy, simple to understand bonus, which is always to include bonus in this case. And then a call to action. So hopefully this was useful. I know that, some of the terms that I used here, it depends on your level and how much experience you have building websites. But some of these tips might require you Googling some terms later. That's fine. You can, if there's a term that I use that you guys don't understand, just go Google it. And, there are plenty of resources to learn all the things I talked about. And then apply these concepts and let us know if they helped you out or whether it was useful in your own projects. Okay? Thank you and good luck.